So, what is your idea why this happens?
I'm sorry?
What is your ideas why this happens,
does this
really?
happen across the board?
Because it interferes with established business that is able to make money with the equipment that isn't as good.
But we are the people. I mean, we are not. We have to try, and you know, this is just the freedom idea. You know, we want that society gets what's best for itself, not for the business people.
Well, the best airplane, the one I told you about, was owned by a consortium of MIT and Harvard people. It was bought up by a major aircraft manufacturer, and now you hear about it at all, none at all. The Piasecki airplane was also bought by the same manufacturer, and now you don't hear it. I don't think I have to tell you anything further.
Yeah, but do we have to put up with this?
We have for 20 or 30 years, without saying as much as you people are about cold fusion. That's why I say this needs to go across the spectrum. Cold fusion is an example of one of the extreme problems.
Yeah, but no more excuse me, if I can interject, however, whereas there you have really some outstanding achievement, technological achievement, what is at stake in cold fusion is really the opening a completely new intellectual scientific field. Is much more, than a great, fantastic technological achievement. Is something that we might eventually put to our, if we understand this behavior in matter, we will be able, I'm sure, to find out smart material, do all kinds of things, because this is, this underscores a behavior of the elementary constituent matters in situations which have never been neither discussed nor dreamed of before. So I think this is just we owe it to our children, we owe it to the future generation that we stick on this and we fight for this, because that would be affecting their lives very much. What I don't understand in all this question of business and so forth, the extraordinary lack of social generosity that this entails. As if, just caring for your fellow citizen, for a fellow human being, was not a part of your being in this world. And this is the thing, that really turns me off for this corporate business, this money and this kind of thing. That people somehow forget the obligation of the more privileged people towards the rest of humanity. This sounds moralistic, but
there's one factor involved here, and it can be summed up in 2 words: journalistic corruption.
There is journalistic corruption to the
journalistic corruption, sustaining the status quo and running into the ground anybody who comes up with a new idea.
Let me tell you that I'm an expert, I think, on science journalism. And there are other experts in the audience. I know some very fine ones here who have covered cold fusion. I forgot to mention, for example, Chemical Engineering News earlier, and I see Ron Nagani, an MIT graduate, who is here, and he's done good cold fusion articles. But I want to say this in general about how the media has reacted to cold fusion. There's been not nearly what there should have been on this subject. What they did was they reacted to 2 very powerful journals, Nature and Science. When both Nature and Science go after something and call it nonsense, it's pretty hard for even a science journalist with guts to stand up and say, wait a minute, there's still a story here worth covering. People have done that in Chemical Engineering News, in Science News. Science News has had continuing stories. It's not that these journals should say, oh, we believe in cold fusion. No, that's not the point. But when there's a conference, they should talk about the conference. When there are new announcements from Japan, they should talk about that, and so forth and so on. I think there's been an unbelievable moving toward a philosophy of journalism which is absolutely untenable. And that is that the purpose of the journalist is to make sure that what he's reporting on is absolutely true and proved beyond any doubt before reporting it. That's not the way journalism should be. Journalism should be, there is a cold fusion debate going on. There are people in Italy working, there are people in Japan, and there are people attacking them who are saying it's nonsense. Fine. Let people make up their own minds. Don't bury it because you've adopted, and it is the New York Times philosophy, I regret to say. The New York Times has the philosophy, it's been almost explicitly stated by them, that they were reluctant to run the cold fusion story immediately, and they didn't run it immediately, because they wanted to be sure that it was right. Okay, as though they are Nature magazine. They aren't Nature magazine. In fact, some of the reporters, and I won't mention any names, you know who they are, I asked certain basic questions about the physics. I'm not talking complex things, certain basic issues. If you don't know those issues, how do you cover in the story? I got a very unsatisfactory answer. And recently, I called a certain gentleman. I probably shouldn't say things like this. I'm getting into hot water, but I did. I called and I said, I talked this business up a bit, hoping to interest him in it. And I got a yawn over the telephone. Okay, this hasn't appeared in Nature yet. Therefore, it can't be true, in effect. He didn't say that, but.
Nature is the Pravda of the science.
Now, I heard Dr. Chubb back there.
No, even Pravda finished. Now Pravda doesn't exist anymore.
Dr. Chubb provided me with a gem. He provided me with a tape of the debate between his uncle, who's also a cold fusion true believer, as they call us, and Dr. David Lindley of Nature, who I will say straight out is an incompetent as far as deciding what should go into his magazine and what not. If you listen to that tape, what you hear is Lindley saying things like, oh, it was so confusing, the data were all, it didn't work this way, and there seemed to be inconsistencies, and there never was any theoretical, or this was said recently, there never was any theoretical or experimental foundation for this. Who the hell is he? This is the man who said, chutzpah. Talk about chutzpah. The man said, he said here about theory, this is great. Where are we here? Oh yes, this is in March 29th, 1990, 1 year after. It was nicely planned for that time.
So
it
that was
right, for the anniversary.
Yeah.
All cold fusion theories can be demolished one way or the other. How could a man utter such a statement? But it takes some effort. Would a measure of then he said, would a measure of unrestrained mockery, even a little unqualified vituperation, have speeded cold fusion's demise? In other words, if we had mocked this subject on day one, we would have killed it. If you listen to that tape of Lindley debating at the American Philosophical Society, anybody who calls himself a true scientist has got to realize that that man has got some serious problems. And I did before we published Fire from Ice, you know, my publisher was really nervous. Oh, are we giving Nature a fair shake? I was even worse. Are we giving them a fair shake? And I said, yeah, we are. We're stating the position just like it is. You know, what more do you want? We gave him Maddox's Nature, you know, the bottom line, it's dead and it will remain dead. But I called Lindley up just one more chance, hoping that he might have a deathbed conversion, or wondering whether I was misstating his 1991 position. He couldn't tell the difference between Jones's experiment and Mallove's experiment. I mean, he knew the differences, but I said, why did you not publish Mallove's experiment when, as I understand, 4 out of 5 reviewers said publish it, and a 5th said no? He said, well, they were about the same thing. Well, what he meant, of course, was that they were just neutrons, they were heat. But it's a hell of a thing to have one experiment, Steve Jones, which is Mother Earth's soup, and get some random neutrons that are sort of low level above background, and another that's got pulses. Pulses in an entirely different system. Deuterated titanium. Lindley couldn't tell the difference. I think the man should be fired. But of course he can't be fired because John Maddox is his boss. The best solution would be to get rid of both of them. Okay? But we don't worry about Nature because Nature's going to die on this. They're going to absolutely die. They're going to have to eat crow. They're going to have the largest plate. And that's it. And if you think this is... How are they going to explain what they did?